Hey Thomas, welcome again to this exciting webinar, not webinar, it's a podcast where we go through these questions and talk about various interesting topics. So once again, welcome to the podcast. How are you
Yeah,
today?
thanks, Dharam, and thank you again for organizing for these events. I think they're quite interesting for us, but also for the readers as we get some good feedback.
Great stuff. Good thing. Good. So how's we'll talk about some topics, especially today we're talking about being responsive versus responsible. Project management, as a project manager, do you think they are more responsive or responsible, or they should be more responsive or responsible? So I have few questions. I will talk about them, ask the questions, and see. We'll discuss around that.
Yeah.
So my first question, yeah, go ahead. Sorry.
If you go for the overall title, and I know you prepared some questions, and we will talk about these, but let me first comment on the two terms, responsive and responsible.
Yeah.
And responsible, actually, you can be responsible to be responsive, but you cannot be really responsive to be responsible. There is a difference, apparently.
Yeah.
And it's also a difference if you have an ethical view. If you look at the code of ethics, responsibility actually is a value that is in the code of ethics. And it means that you are in charge of your decisions and actions and the consequences out of that, and that you should take care of them. And responsive is not in the code of ethics, but responsive is that you react to questions or react to some senses that come to you. And it's more related, in my view, to the value of respect. Because if you are responsive to somebody, you respect his question and his need to get an answer or a response, if you want. So from the view of the code of ethics, I would say both are somehow included in there. The one with the value of respect, the other with the value of responsibility. And given that, both are important for the project manager.
Yeah. So from my point of view, responsible is somebody you have given list of activities you have to do, or these are the work you are required to do. You're responsible for that. You have to make sure the project is successfully delivered, and you manage your budget, you manage your team. You are responsible for them. And being responsive is sometimes you have to react, take action, and not just going the same way of whatever project we have been doing. We need to act and maybe make sudden change in direction.
Mm-hmm.
So true. Because we're talking more and more agility, then that's where the term responsive also coming together.
Yeah.
So
that's also true.
Exactly. Yeah. So my first question is, you don't have to be smarter, most knowledgeable person on the project to be the project manager. Do you agree with this statement?
Yes and no, partly. So there are two attributes in there. So to be smart, and everybody wants to be smart because it's smart means to be mentally capable of something,
Yep.
Aware of something, maybe intelligent. But there's also a saying, to be humble and to be a learning individual. If you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. That's the saying. Yeah? So, and as a project manager, especially, because if you are the smartest guy on your full team, you don't have a good team. Your team is not smarter than you, but the team should be smarter than you. And you should be providing the guidance to the team to use that smartness to make the project to a success, which you alone cannot do. You are dependent on your team. And the other thing is knowledge. That's the smartness. The other thing is knowledge, and I see two aspects to knowledge. So first, the knowledge I know about the subject, the what of the subject.
Yeah.
I know this smartphone is made out of a battery and a screen and whatever you have, And so I might have this knowledge about the smartphone, but there's another knowledge which is even more important, and that's the knowledge of how to do things, how to approach problems. So if you don't know really about a device you get along, or a new thing, it's nevertheless good if you have some knowledge about how to approach this situation, without knowing something about the subject you are dealing with. So the knowledge has different aspects, and I think it's important to have this know-how, know how to approach life, know how to judge people, know how to have a perspective, know how to survive. That's the whole purpose of life, and the whole purpose of a project. Know how to make it happen. That's the purpose of a project. Make it happen, and the it depends. And maybe you don't know much about the it, but then your responsibility is to get the right people on board. So that's my answer to that question. You should be smart for sure. You should not be a dumb person as a project manager, but again, you should have even smarter people.
Yeah, I think the best, most important thing is you should be able to work with those SMEs and smarter people and give them direction. They are smart, they know what to do, they have the knowledge, they are the expert in that area, network engineer, they are the expert in the cloud, they know everything. You probably have no idea at all. But what you are the one leader working together with this different type of resources and take them from here, the whole project from here to there, to achieve the objective of the project.
Yeah. So yeah, there are several tasks a project manager and a leader has to do, for that team of smart and knowledgeable people, So the first is, to provide them with a target, with a vision, with a goal, where to align them along this goal. That's what we're going to reach overall. That's what we're going to reach in the first quarter, whatever. You have to set this kind of milestones, the visions to look at, but also to make them collaborate, make them work together, because a team is only a good team if the people the team has more capability than the individuals in the team, so they have somehow to help each other. So like now we had the World Soccer Championship in Qatar, and we had two teams who really worked together in the finals, France and Argentina. And if you saw the game, the both teams really everybody ran for the other guy, even superstars like Mbappé or for the French or Messi for the Argentinian. They played what we call to support the team, and nobody was so hyperbole or so arrogant and say, I'm the boss here. No, that was not the case. But even then, with leadership, who was the leader of the team? It was clear it was Messi on the Argentinian side, and he helped his guys to shoot goals. He did goals by himself. But an interesting aspect, the whole finals were decided in the shootouts, and there were five shootouts for each thing, and leadership in the shootouts was moved away from Messi for the Argentinians or from Mbappé, because the leadership was clearly with the goalie on both sides.
Exactly.
Yeah. In a project, it might be a good leader style. That you understand, now we have a different situation, and maybe somebody else should take leadership and support the whole team. And exactly this was done by two teams, and this was amazing example for good leadership and for good teaming.
Exactly. And I call this, when Argentina won that, and Messi got all the recognition, the Messi moment.
Yeah, somehow. So both teams were great, and I think I was happy that the Argentinians won. But so I'm a little bit biased in that because I thought Messi, with 35 years, is probably his last championship, and he missed the title yet in his career, so he deserved it for his lifetime achievements, you know.
Fantastic. Yeah. So being as we say, no, sometimes it happens that you are a project manager. You probably have no idea about the technology. You have no idea about, a lot of things are new for you. And I tell you my example. I was hired by HP for cloud setup, cloud data center setup. And prior to joining this program, I have no idea about cloud. And I have worked in data center, no idea about cloud. So I was not the knowledgeable person here. And only thing I know how to get my team together and how to work with various type of stakeholders at different time. That made the difference. There was a couple of situations where some of the stakeholders were very difficult to work with, but utilizing some of the interpersonal skills helped me to gain through. As a program manager, project manager, you don't talk about the knowledge, but about how can you work with various type of difficult stakeholder, this stakeholder, and get the work done. Yeah,
that's true. And did you have some previous training, education, insights in this kind of behavior, or was it just the only thing you could do?
Yeah. You just have to live with, like, sometimes you feel that you are thrown into the middle of ocean, and you have to swim, and if you don't swim, you're gone.
Right. So I had a similar situation in one of my first projects in 1987. Actually, I went to my first big project, multi-million D-Mark project for a client of IBM. And actually, I was a good specialist in designing a data center and doing that. Nevertheless, I got an even greater specialist for that task on my team, and this proved really good because I knew I could talk with him all day about the solutions we were going to develop, but I didn't need to because I trusted him, and he was better, and he was a mentor of mine. So let's do the technical stuff from his side, and I was concentrating then on let me say, support him, with everything else what was needed. And there was a lot of things that had to be done on the application side, on the training side, on the subcontractor side, and going with all the stakeholders and users and seeing where they're going, financial side. So I stripped all these, let's say, tasks from him, and he could focus on his. And when I saw that, it was exactly the right thing to. And I was observed, for sure. As a project manager, you are known by everybody because you have this title, this role. And some people say, "What a poor guy," and maybe they're right. But even then, I had fun because I could concentrate on communications, which is very important. It was to build up communications paths and communication media that helped the whole team to understand where we are and what they should do and what others would do and where we are as a whole team. And that helped people a lot to gain the buy-in into the project and to support the project. And this was the fundamental root cause of a successful project in the end. It was not the subject matter expertise of my colleague, which I could have done, but he did it, and I concentrated on stuff that was new to me. I swam, and actually, in 87, I looked for a book, how to do project management, and I found one, maybe three or four, but one particular, and this guy, he wrote that project management is about communications primarily. And I said, okay, if he says so, I tried. I tried it, and it worked.
Good. So thank you for sharing your knowledge and information about this topic. My next question is, okay, what are the responsible project managers' expectation of project teams? and what should they expect from one another?
Well, yeah. First of all, I expect, as a responsible project manager, I expect something from the team, but I have to make sure that I am the one who has to provide the team with the tools to match these expectations. So I set the goals, but I have also to well, it starts with building the team, understanding whom I have, whom I need. So sometimes you already have half of the team because they're ready. They always work in these kinds of projects, and then you cannot talk about skills or capabilities. These are given members of your team. And then you still have, hopefully, the opportunity to select some new team members to your team, and that's the first important step. So whom do you select? And many people look at the technical skills only, subject matter expertise, or doing this and that. And I didn't from the beginning. So I said, this guy must somehow supplement the team. It should not be a duplication of people I have already, because diversity is a good thing on a team, and you have to have different views and different solutions coming up from the people. So I looked for people who would supplement the team and who would create a greater capability for the full team, if they are there. And I also don't need people who have an attitude of being the lonely wolves, and maybe arrogant and not humble, and there are some people who are like that, and maybe they are the greatest guys in their environment, but not in my environment. And then that's the power I can yield then, as a project manager, select the right people. So that's the first step where it can go wrong. If you have a sour apple in your basket, it will infect other apples. So you make sure that you know that. And the second thing then is to see, you have to match the team's capabilities. And I'm not talking about skills only, but also behaviors and experience and everything with the task at hand. So even if you have, let's say, one guy who was a great test manager before, maybe he is not the best test manager on your project because the situation is different. Yeah. Or maybe you want to coach a younger guy in this testing environment because there's a reason for that. So it's important now to if you know what your team is, that you match the team person by person to the roles that you need on the project, and then talk with these and make sure they understand it, and if there are gaps, close the gaps. So that's the coaching responsibility of a project manager. Responsible project manager, he coaches people, and coaching for me means that I look at my guys, I understand where they are, and I'm closing skills and capability gaps. And sometimes I send them to a class or whatever, get them a mentor or whatever. But in many cases, because it's about behaviors, I can coach them myself as a project manager, because communication behaviors in problems, in conflict situations, it's my task to tell them, not to tell them, to give them hints how to get better at these kind of behavior tasks. So that's what the responsible project manager is doing, making sure that you have the right team, and making sure the team understands what is going to happen. And that's only the beginning of the teaming phase, and the project runs. And in one project, it was a program, actually. I had 120 people on the team, and I had a weekly day for interviewing new people, because they come in, go out, and maybe depending on the phase of the project, you need different skills temporarily. So there is a ongoing task to select people and interview them and read the CV, talk to them, and then see how they might fit. Yeah. And if you are in situation where these people come from contractors, you also have to do all the contracting stuff on top of that. Yeah.
Exactly. Yeah. So this is very important area for a project manager to be knowing about his responsibility. Generally, we nowadays we talk about servant leadership. Where you are kind of creating environment for them so that removing the blockage and all kind of things, so that the team can do what they're supposed to do. Not worrying about how to get rid of this and that. They have environment. Everything is laid down, and you just have to complete the work.
Yeah.
So, good. Thank you. Okay. How, as the project manager, can you discover potential problem before they occur?
Well, yes, it's also that you don't have to be the sole problem discoverer on your project. You have a team, and if they trust you, they will talk to you and they will share their concerns. And maybe they sense something much earlier, than you could see. And if a problem really pops up, then it's a surprise to whom? To management, to project management, to sponsors, But maybe it was not a surprise for the people working in this area before, because they said, oh, this could take longer, or maybe there is a technical problem. They know it, and again, this is. Don't try to be the problem recognizer by yourself, but utilize the collaboration in the team to make sure that these problems are shown up as risks, and for that, in the status meetings, if you gather the teams or the team leads, there's always one agenda item that's called look at the risks, and are these risks we have already identified and analyzed? Are they still valid? Do we have new information about them? And yes, do we have new risks in some areas? And then the areas would change, because depending on where you are in the life cycle of the project, maybe if next week there is a system test going on, then we will look at the system test risks, and not I, but the people who are going to be the system testers and the people who are the developers, because they know, okay, we have developed everything fine, but this area might pose some problems. So that's the point, to identify the problems early as risks and utilize the full team's power.
Exactly. And you rightly mentioned that, having a right team and who understand, what's going to happen, who understand what they are the SMEs, and, in your risk meetings, on your status meeting, they're going to escalate, or they're going to tell you this potential is coming up. Make sure we identify, make sure we have analyzed it, have a right strategy to manage it, so that, yes, you are not the most knowledgeable person in the whole project, but there are people who understand various things. So ask them, Rick, they are the one who are going to tell you what can go wrong, what is happening, what about to happen, some risk and sometimes issues. Issues. If issues are something which you need to know, if you could have identified them earlier, you are in a better situation. But if you're not, now you have to deal with it.
Right. And another technique, I also used in my project was to go for external expertise.
Yep.
Either you do a full-blown quality assurance review of your project, which might take, if it's a short one, a quick step, maybe half a day, an interview with an experienced quality assurer doing that. Or if you're, as I said, in the situation where next week system test is starting, you ask some people who did a system test before, what possibly could go wrong from your experience, and you ask this because you and your team might already have a tunnel view, especially if the schedule is tight, if some other problems have to be handled, then you tend not to be so open for other problems, and then you can run into them.
Exactly. So that's what it is. As a project manager, you have right people, and you meet with them occasionally as you have planned. We identify the potential risk as early as possible, and you need to understand the severity of the problem, the risk, and you have a plan to mitigate that. So that's where a very big differentiator between an ordinary project manager or project manager or expert project manager. That's what my view.
Yeah, correct.
Okay, great. Thank you. Thank you for the answer. Okay, what is not the main responsibility of a project manager? We talk about lots of responsibilities, but there are a few things you're not supposed to be involved in that. You're not responsible for that. What do you think?
Well, as a project manager, I have the mantra or the philosophy to say my responsibility is to make it happen. As such, I'm 360 degrees responsible for anything what happens around the project until the project is not only delivered but also handed over and everything, the result. But there are things you should avoid. Not to be responsible for, but you should avoid to do yourself, to act on it. And we mentioned some, all the subject matter experts they are there that they could do that. But what is absolutely not the main responsibility is to take the baby of your project and carry it over the line. That's not you doing that. The team is doing that,
Yes.
And you are behind the team and make sure the baby doesn't fall to the ground and everybody is in front of you and you guide them and maybe you reach a bottle of water if somebody is thirsty and that's a kind of servant leadership behavior. Though I must say servant leadership is not enough to look at if you look at project leadership,
Exactly. Yeah. So kind of you're working on the defined project management plan, for example. You have approved project management plan by the steering committee and your sponsor. Sometimes you're working as the part of the program or organization. So there are strategies that are defined by the organization. You're kind of implementing them. So I don't see the responsibility of a project manager is to define the strategy. Whatever is defined, whatever work is given, you make it, as you mentioned, correctly mentioned. You're making it possible, making it happen with your limited resources, limited people, limited money allocation, and make it happen. But otherwise, few things you can, as you mentioned, the people are there, delegate the work. They are the best people, let them do the work. You just give them direction,
right.
Leadership.
Well, yeah, in my answer, I focused more on the internal side of the project, and saying what internal of the project, what is the main responsibility, and it's not to be the best subject matter, as I said. Regarding strategy, so I don't see it as a responsibility, you're right, of a project manager to define strategy, to make sure it fits into the organization. That's more the role of the sponsor from the responsibility point of view. But I would say, you should look at the sponsor and the organization as stakeholders. And your role is, your responsibility as a project manager is to influence stakeholders. So if there is a strategy which is hard to implement, and you might benefit, your project might benefit from a little tweaks in the strategy. So there might be a good chance that you are able to nudge the sponsor into changing the strategy a bit. So and you should do that. So you should not shy away from looking at higher management or totally uninvolved division leads or a sponsor or HR or finance or legal departments, to nudge them to support you by changing their expectations, by changing their demands, and that's one of the most neglected parts of project, because they are afraid of approaching these people. They don't talk the language. But I learned in more than 30 years of doing client projects, you have to talk to these people, build a relationship, and influence them. Yeah, we have to do that.
Yeah. So that's your main responsibility. You talk to the stakeholder, work with your stakeholders, your project manager, your project team, everybody, and take the team from here to there based on your approved project management plan and under the guidance of steering committee and the project sponsor.
Yeah.
Great. Fantastic. Thank you. Thank you very much. Okay, how does project manager gain leadership skills via proactive approach.
Yeah. So how did I do that? You know, when I decided in '88 to become a project management professional, to enter the profession of project management, better to say, I was not aware of PMP at that time, but then I really cut off all my training and development in the technical parts. You know, though I was a software developer before, I was a systems engineer before. Then I left that behind, and I focused on, okay, how can I improve my communication skills? And you know what? My company, I was lucky, IBM, they offered a lot of classes. So I decided with my managers at that time, you know, which way I want to go. And yeah, they supported me in getting the internal classes. But more important was to be proactive in outside of my company, you know, to understand that all these classes and skill improvements would benefit myself as a person, as a human being in any situation. And so I attended on my own cost, on my own time, several leadership-related courses, classes, trainings. You know, we have public schools in Germany can go to these classes in evenings on Saturdays. I did that a lot in the 90s. So after I decided that. So that's one thing, you know, and I continue to educate and train myself outside of that, what IBM was very positively providing too. So I had a lot of input, and maybe it could have been more focused and more, but it is what it is. And the second leg I took, and I was not intending to use it actually as a leadership sandbox, but it developed that. So I became a volunteer leader for PMI. So I was a member of PMI since '92, but I was just attending meetings, you know, listening. And then in '98, I had the chance, and I was asked to become the president of the PMI Frankfurt chapter. And I reluctantly accepted, you know, but then soon enough, you know, it was fun, it was nice, and I learned a lot about leadership, you know, because if you have a board of nine volunteers, and you try to force them into any behavior or doing something, they will just go away, or what some chapters are experiencing, you know, they might even sue you, you know, because of being disrespected, feeling bad. And so yeah, I learned a lot from leading 9 volunteers on a board, and then leading volunteers on a lot of committees. And that's why I say volunteering is a big sandbox for project managers to learn about skills they can need in their day jobs, you know, and that's what I did. I'm since '98. I'm volunteering still today, and it's getting addictive, and it's also not for free. So you know, in times as a project, as a chapter president, and also as a board member later. So 60 days a year were spent on these activities as a volunteer. Well, it sounds a lot, and luckily in Germany we have 30 plus days of vacation. I use that, and also, you know, you have a lot of Saturdays and Sundays. You can also invest in that.
Exactly. So, in nutshell, lots of training, reading, and you know, volunteering with PMI or any of the professional groups, and learning from your peers, and of course that's another important thing. And go for some certifications as well, you know, like PMP. If you're not done the PMP, go for PMP, PgMP, PfMP, anything which can help you to gain the knowledge faster and apply the knowledge in your project program portfolio management.
Yeah, that's also the point. If you learn something from a book or from a class or something, you have to practice it. You know, you have to try it out. And and otherwise it won't stick with you. You might have knowledge about it, but you don't have the know-how about it. So that's exactly what we talked in the beginning about the knowledge part. So if you read a book, and I read a lot of books about leadership, and recently about philosophy, because in the end leadership is also about mindsets, and setting mindsets and having different perspectives, and that's very interesting.
Yeah, and learn from others, learn from the lessons they have gained for the period of time, what worked for them, what didn't work for them.
Which comes back to the quote I mentioned in the beginning. If you are the smartest person in the room, you are in the wrong room. So if you are not as smart as the others, all you can do is learn and listen and ask questions. And if you are there to only answer questions, again, you are in the wrong room. Yeah.
Exactly. Good. Thank you very much, Thomas. Good answer. Good explanation. All right. Are extreme flexibility and rapid responsiveness needed for project managers in the current scenario?
The current scenario, I think you refer to the VUCA thing, and I'm very critical about that term. So I don't think the current scenario really is so different from the scenario.
It's always like that.
It was always like that. If you lived in Pompeo 2,000 years ago, and the volcano started to do something, and you said, okay, volcano again, did the same thing last year, so will not be so difficult, but 4 hours later you are dead. So it's a typical gray swan. We know about the problem, but we neglect it somehow. We don't act on it. So that's change always came across humans, and you might say it's now quicker. Well, it's now quicker because we are here at this moment in time, and so it's quick. But if you look at this moment, maybe 500 years later, you will laugh about it. What was quick when Columbus discovered in the Caribbean the islands, and 20 years later the Incas were defeated by the Spanish. That was quick. An invasion, and the Incas came to Peru, and city of Lima was established. I think it was 1514. So 20 years later, the city of Lima was a Spanish city. It's crazy, the speed, and if you live in the moment and disaster comes, that's quick, sure. Yep. But that has been all the time the same. So that's about the current scenario. I don't think there is a current scenario. It has always been the same, But nevertheless, you're right. What can help us with that same scenario? We always meet you. And there's a second word in this question: extreme flexibility and rapid responsiveness. Extremism is always bad, So in my experience, even in quick changes, 50% of all problems that I perceived vanish if I wait a bit. The power of patience, the power of not a knee-jerk reaction, but when should you react, when not? That's a matter of experience and judgment, and sometimes you are wrong, sometimes you are okay. Yeah. So if there is a hustle in the bush, is it a saber-toothed tiger, or is it a deer you might shoot for hunting? That's you have to decide quickly. In some situations, sure. But it's not a general advice I would give to be extreme flexible and very rapid in your response. So in contrast, if we have rapid responses, we have to understand that our biases, our emotions play a big role in our decisions with the rapid response. So if you get a typical example is you get an email in the afternoon accusing you of something, and then you respond in the next 5 minutes, and this is almost always a mistake, a big mistake. So what you always should do with these emails that somehow trigger emotions, mostly bad, even good emotions, sleep on it, think about it, and you know what, your brain in your sleep will solve your problem, and in the next morning you have the right answer for that, and it probably will not as harsh and as knee-jerk type as it was the afternoon before.
Exactly. It's not just a knee-jerk reaction, but in some situation, it's better to take your time, sleep over, as you correctly mentioned. As I can go back to some of the situation which I did, I should not have done it that way. So I learned from in a hard way. Yes, flexibility, like I see the term flexibility is more because current environment is things are changing very fast. Some disruptive technology is coming. Can you continue with the same approach? No, we need to deviate or maybe come back to the flexibility. Approach may have to be different. So that's where I see. I'm whether extreme flexibility is required or not. That's the difference. But you need to be you need to adopt according to the situation.
Yeah, sure. And maybe it's my personal luck with my life, my professional life. That I worked with IBM, and I was always equipped with the finest technology that at the first time, the first PC, the first laptop, the first mobile phone, the first whatever, chat services, the first cloud, and I was always eager to be on that first wagon to drive through the mountains, though it's that's maybe also an attitude which was born out of the possibility of my environment at this time. Again, things are coming fast, but they always came fast. That's my experience, and everybody has a different lifetime experience for that. So I appreciate that there are my different views on that VUCA thing. But I think also VUCA, the term is used in many times to create bad emotions, fears, and concerns, and then it's damaging. So we had this at IBM. We had at one time. You didn't make a mistake if you bought IBM mainframes, and actually the mainframes we have still today, were invented by a lot of people, and one of them was Gene Amdahl, and he left IBM around 1970, and had his own company, built his own mainframes. And he suffered from the fact that, IBM said, "Oh, that's not IBM. It's Amdahl, but not IBM." And so he coined the term FUD, F-U-D, which stands for fear, uncertainty, doubt. And this was the marketing message of IBM at this time, 1960s, and today the marketing message of many people who want to sell their solutions is VUCA. So if I see a presentation starting with VUCA, I'm very suspicious.
All right, let's not talk too much about VUCA, but yes, flexibility, responsiveness is a kind of little bit expected from project manager because situations change very fast. You cannot be just stick to whatever was started 5 years ago. Things have changed. Okay, let's look at the new way of doing things, new direction. Yeah.
Well, let me support the statement of rapid responsiveness. For instance, if you look at firefighters, you expect rapid responsiveness from them.
Exactly.
You call them; they should be there in several minutes, and they should be understanding what they should do. Yes, they can do it, but why can they do it? Because they trained for it, and there is a rational process they are trained for, and then your rapid response is still unconscious, but it's not emotional because it's a habit you have been trained for, and you know how to behave, and you do that, and it's and if you do that, you are never torn to court, because you just do what you were trained for, and what is the common best solution for this kind of situation. So this is rapid responsiveness. So if you want to be responsive rapidly, you have to train these situations, and that's what project managers can do. If you see a problem coming up in your team, if you see a conflict coming up, it's wise not to think about 3 weeks about it, but to have a rapid response the same day when you see there's a conflict coming up. When two people start fighting or whatever, then you intervene. But you have to be clear what you're doing here, no own emotions, and you can train this kind of situations to do that. Same thing with the extreme flexibility. Well, yes, if there are big changes coming up, and you have to be extreme flexibility, flexible, and it might even contradict the rapid responsiveness in sometimes. Extreme flexibility means that you can weather out the problem coming in. You just move to this side, and then the storm will not hit you. But maybe it's sometimes better to understand you be that duck and hide, and are not flexible in that moment, but stand your ground. And again here, if you're trained for these situations, you will be much more well equipped to handle these situations.
Very nice. Very nice. Very nicely put together. Thank you. Thank you very much, Thomas. What are the inherent difficulties in project management when dealing between powers or authority and responsibility?
Yeah, well, many project managers do not have power. You would have as a division lead or a department manager, when you have an official power to that. They are equipped with the power of the charter and maybe the project management policy around it that your organization has, but that's it. And so even, if you have a team, and the team has a manager somewhere in a matrix organization, you don't have the power to even tell them not to take a vacation or not to get a raise or whatever, or to stay on the project. They might quit your project, and so your power is very limited. But that's a good thing, because you have to learn, you have to have the habit to create your power through through being a leader, by influencing people. So if you are a leader and you can say, I'm the big manager, you see my shoulder claps, and I'm doing that, maybe people follow you, and maybe you can force them, but they don't do it willingly. They don't want to do it, and they are not engaged. And so it's better for a teaming approach if everybody does it for himself, is inspired to follow you, and this power to inspire people. That's very important. You need to have, and it's good if you don't have any positional or legal power across the others. And also in history, people who went who really were successful, like Napoleon or Alexander the Great, their power didn't come from their positional I'm king or so. Their power came from their behaviors, and that they could inspire people to follow them and to conquer the world, if you want.
Exactly.
So these are that's the inherent difficulty, but I think it's an advantage if you can handle it, if you can develop yourself into an influencer. I don't mean the TikTok influencer, I mean the influencer for your stakeholders, not only your team, but also your customer, or also your the users, you're developing the project for, or the sponsor, and as we talked before, management executives. They're also stakeholders, and if you can influence them, yeah. And and again, then volunteering is a good sandbox for this kind of influence to try it out. Maybe your wife is not the best sandbox to try out your influencing skills. Maybe she has even better influencing skills. But if you are in a volunteer environment, you can try out some tools and techniques and some nudging. And a word of caution here, influencing can become manipulating with a negative touch, with making people do something they don't want, that's not good for them. And then it's manipulation. And we have a lot of manipulation out there in the world. Every salesman wants to manipulate you, and every politician wants to manipulate you to vote for him. So there's a lot of manipulation out there. But as a project manager, if you act ethically, you can exert the influencing skills and still be behaving actually not increasing the harm for others. And then I think it's okay, but it's also a personal judgment.
Exactly. So if I read the question one more time, the question saying, what are the inherent difficulty in project management when dealing between power and authority and responsibility? So basically you're juggling between leadership power, whatever you gain as a project manager, authority and responsibility. So you need to juggle and have the best balance for your team, for the project.
Correct.
Good stuff. Thank you very much, Thomas. And it was a pleasure talking with you. And I hope people find it interesting and useful. And they will continue to watch and provide the comments.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thanks, Dharam, and enjoying these sessions. And we have in our plan several other sessions. We're doing this every second week, and I think it's a good thing to do. I enjoy it also. And by the way, because it's just before Christmas now, people who hear that in a year or what don't know that. So I wish you all the best for the holidays and a healthy new year. As we get older, health becomes more important,
Yeah.
And be responsive if you feel some problems.
Exactly.
and be flexible in your timings. Maybe reduce your coffee consume or whatever you might do harmful.
So collectively from us, Merry Christmas to all the listeners and who are watching this video, and wish you very, very successful, healthy, exciting New Year. Thank you, all of you. Thank you. Take care. Bye.
Bye-bye.